You're listening to Ordinary Eccentrics. I'm Courtney Lofton, and together we'll uncover the extraordinary lives of ordinary people. Let's hop into it. Hello.
Hi, hello.
Hi, Shloimy?
Yes, that's it. You got it right.
Oh, awesome. Okay, could you say your first and last name for me just for clarity for the podcast?
Yeah, definitely. My first name is pronounced Shloimy. Last name Reiger.
Reiger. Shloimy
Yes.
Reiger, thank you so much for joining. You're actually my very first recording.
Oh, wow, that's exciting. I'm so
Yes,
happy for you.
thank you. So I'm very, very grateful that you've joined, and I'm really looking forward to getting to know you. We only have an hour together, so I'm going to just jump right in, and I'd love for you to give me some just personal background, kind of where you're born, where you're raised, kind of start there. We can get more into where you are now.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna say that you might have a lot of questions along the way. Feel free to ask
Okay.
as many as you want. I probably come from a very different background than a lot of your listeners may be expecting. I'm an Orthodox Jew, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York,
Mm-hmm.
in a small village or neighborhood that we call Borough Park. Um, I think it has the largest concentration of Orthodox Jews in one small neighborhood outside of Israel, probably.
Mm.
So yeah, born and
I
bred
lived in
together with.
Crown Heights for a year.
Oh
So,
yeah, that's not far. That's like a half hour away from
yeah.
us. Yes, I mean
Yeah,
depending on the
awesome.
traffic.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Crown Heights is
I would take the
also.
bus to Williamsburg and I would go through, I think, Borough Park sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. So you're pretty familiar with our cultural
Yeah.
background. I am married, happily married for 13 years, a proud
Hmm.
father of 5 kids.
Amazing.
And another one is on the way at the end of December. So we're going to be celebrating the new year with hopefully what is going to be a new addition to the family.
Wonderful. Sixth child. That's beautiful.
Yes.
So I'll ask straight away, what is it like being a parent to 5 children with a sixth on the way?
It's a lot.
Yeah, I bet.
Honestly. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie my way through this and say it's not. It is a lot. But I do believe that the love that parents have for children is limitless.
Hmm.
And if you can have love for one, you can have love for many. It's a way, I don't know, but the universe, the way we are created, we're created with that love within us, that no matter what our children do, we still love them. We're still gonna try to be there for them as much as possible. Still gonna try to, educate them and bring them forth to be a living legacy to what we want,
Hmm.
the values that we want to instill in them. And if it's one or if it's five, if you have room in your heart for it, then you have room in the physical world as well. So yeah, while it's overwhelming at times and it's not easy at times, the love is still there, the emotions is still there, the quality is still there, and the
Absolutely.
energy that that's needed from us as parents is still there, even if it's five.
That's beautiful. I'm really curious, given 2023 and smartphones and apps and everything like that, how have you found raising children in this digital world, especially living in Borough Park, where it is such a homogenous group of people? What's that been like?
Yes, I would say that part actually works a little bit in our favor
Mm-hmm.
because the outside technology is pretty limited in our community where we live. So all of our smartphones, not everyone has, but if you
Mm-hmm.
have a smartphone, we basically filter it, and we have a lot of internal technology companies.
Oh,
There are outside companies that are known, like there's a filter company I believe called OpenDNS. There used to be K9 when we grew up. That's what I remember when I was a child. But those are all filtering companies that we use on our devices. So our children don't grow up using a lot of the technology that the outside world uses, which kind of allows us to focus more on the values and on the spiritual studies, the studies that they go through, the Hebrew studies, the English studies.
Mhm.
It allows us to connect on a human level a lot more. That even though if you have a lot kids, even when you have to deal with a lot, the technology is not there to take you away from the moment. And
Mm,
then we also have the Shabbat, which is like
yeah.
every seventh day, right? Saturday,
Mhm.
when there's no devices, no work, nothing in relation to that at all. So that also provides you an opportunity to just seclude yourself from the outside world and include yourself in your inside world, in your
Mhm.
family world, with your kids, with your wife, with your parents, with your siblings. And it gives you that like space, that breathing space of 24 hours that you can focus solely on them.
Totally. So for you, um, living your whole life in Brooklyn, and I'm still on the technology side of it because I remember when iPhones came out in 2011. I'd been in New York for about almost 4 years at that point. I was going to Columbia, and I remember getting around New York City without any sort of cell phone, no directions, Google Maps, anything like that. And that was like the main thing I used a phone for. But now it's like TikTok, Instagram, podcasts, so many different avenues of media and entertainment, and like so many things to be kind of entrapped by or exposed to. Did you ever get to a point of being really curious when like Google came out and Facebook, and was that something that you like explored and then came back into the community? But like when social media and internet technology really started to thrive and be like such a huge part of everyone's everyday life, how did that affect your community?
Right. So we actually had a very large gathering a couple of years ago. I believe it was roughly around the time when social media exploded. So maybe 5 or 6, 7 years ago or so, where I believe around 50,000 Orthodox Jews gathered. And we heard from our spiritual leaders and from people that were familiar with the power that social media has to influence our lives. And
Mm-hmm.
we were basically educated about the dangers that it entails, because social media is an unfiltered version of the internet. You
Yeah.
can filter Google, right? And for if you search on Google, they'll
Mm-hmm.
try to provide you the most positive results possible, right? They'll try to take away your eyes from the negative stuff. But when you're on social media, it's very different, because social media, every network has their own ways of filtering what they do or don't allow on their network. And it does provide you an openness to the outside world. And we voluntarily chose not to expose our kids to
Mm-hmm.
that, not to even expose ourselves to that, because I don't want my eyes to see part of what the world has to offer. I don't believe it's needed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, People may believe differently than me, and that's perfectly fine. I'm not seeking to debate anyone on this topic. I mean,
No.
if someone wants to debate it, we can debate if it's good or not. But I do believe that even if you look at it from a little bit of a scientific background, take out the spiritual or religious side of it. Like, there's been countless articles in the Western culture, right, in New York Times and Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal, that based off scientific evidence, right, they want you to limit time with time of that the kids spend on TV or time that the kids spend on social media. The
Right.
United States government is about to like they're actively seeking to ban TikTok because it can influence children.
Yeah.
So while the government is trying to do it right from their background, the moral question, the ethical question that we all should have is, as parents, do we want our kids to even be exposed to that? And we actively try to instill values in our kids where, yeah, we don't need it. Yeah, Google Maps is easier on the phone, right? But
Right.
are you willing to put it to risk the reward and figure it out? Like you said, we grew up without it, right? And
Right.
for some odd reason, we were able to find directions. We were able to travel
I still
without like
can't find
having
them.
the. Yeah, I remember growing up when we used to go on family trips. that we used to go online onto MapQuest. Who in
Yes.
this generation knows what MapQuest even is? We
Right.
used to print out like a couple of pages, and then if we missed an exit, that was like all hell broke loose. Like, what do we
Exactly.
do? It's not on MapQuest. No one is rerouting you. But at the same time, the risk that we're getting for being so vulnerable to the outside world is that so many people are suffering from physical or mental illnesses today that didn't happen years ago. And we have to
Yeah.
think to ourselves sometimes, what is the value of all these things? is
Yeah.
is there value in a lot of these things? Yeah, of course, but what is the risk that we're putting ourselves through? What is the challenge that we're putting ourselves through? And then every individual has to do a risk assessment on their own.
Right.
What are the values they want to instill in their children?
I wholeheartedly agree with that, because I don't have children, but even for myself, I get curious about new things. So TikTok, I downloaded, I let it kind of, the algorithm kind of dives into everything on your device, so it learns about you and delivers content that's hyper personalized, and it gets addicting because you're getting this dopamine kick from all of these things that you're already interested in, and it switches it when you're not getting paying enough attention. And so I have found myself scrolling for hours, and like now I've really recognized it and been more aware of it and taken a step back. But you mentioned vulnerability, and I'm curious to know how you feel like the values that you instill in yourself, your community, your children, how that kind of protects the vulnerability from being influenced from outside messages, and or if you feel like there it could potentially create more vulnerability if that's all you grow up knowing.
Right. Yeah. So there is two sides to the argument of, if you limit them by force, what holds them back for when they grow up to fall outside and to seek outside validation. But I do try to instill in them the vulnerability and the values that validation always comes from within. TikTok has an algorithm that's going to try to validate what you're seeking on the app, not because they want you, but because they want you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they want you to check out the app more, because the more time you spend on the app, they're making money in it. They're not actively seeking for your validation to be better. They're not actively seeking for Shloimy Reiger as a person to be better by watching TikTok, but they're
Mm-hmm.
actually seeking to gain Shloimy Reiger like an addiction, where you pull that person in, where they want Shloimy Reiger to watch more TikTok, to be on Facebook more, to be on social media more. So in order for them to make more profit, very few people created these apps for to better the world, right? And that doesn't mean that there is no value in it. Obviously, there's a lot of value in every single, right. People are helped now more than ever, especially people that struggle with mental health,
Mm-hmm.
because they see on social media as many people that are, and yeah, that's a very good way of using it. But then again, you have to do the risk assessment, right? On TikTok or on Twitter or on Instagram or on Facebook, you also have to physically choose who are the people that I'm going to follow, right? And although you're exposed to the entire world, you're vulnerable to everything. You choose the values that align mostly with what you value in life. If it's you're spiritual, you're gonna follow people that speak to your spirituality, right? If it's physical health, if it's someone that wants to do better on their exercising or on their eating habits, they're gonna follow people that speak to them on that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is your choosing, this is how you choose, right? But at the same time, you don't want Instagram to influence you on something that goes against what you're choosing, right? If I want to go to the gym, I don't want Instagram to start showing me content that sends me away from the gym.
Right.
So they're going to start showing me content that sends me to the gym. But then again, that's the value you choose. So they're going to try to cater it to you. But at some point, you're not going to notice it. They're going to start pushing you towards things that they believe may gain you in, like
Right.
may create that addiction for you to get back in. And that's where you have to suddenly notice, oh, I'm going a little bit away from my value. And you voluntarily choose to say, no, I'm going to unfollow that account because I feel like they're going a step too far.
Right.
And for me, speaking for me and my kids and my community, that's what we try to do to our kids. We try not to tell them, you can't have it because the rabbi said so, but rather you can have it because if you believe in a central value-based system, a lot of the things that are open in the world is not good for us. It's not healthy for us. And even the Western culture recognizes that, because they report the same thing. And like, yeah, a lot of scientists or people that have studied like psychotherapy or these types of mental have said that, limit the time a kid spends watching on TV,
Right.
limit the time that they watch like extreme shows or like shootings or that, because it may influence kids.
Right.
And that doesn't hold back the people from that create the TV shows from doing those shows. They still do it. They still shoot the shows. They still film these. They still show it to the kids. But we have to actively choose what are we gonna allow our kids to watch and what not. And for everyone, that line is gonna be different, right? Some people are gonna say like, you're only gonna watch a comedy. You're only gonna watch a drama. You're
Right.
only gonna watch a sci-fi. We have to make actively that choosing, that which values do we want to instill in our kids. And when you instill those values, I would say I find it very important to explain to my kids why it is very important for me to instill those values in them, and for them to understand it, for them to understand why they are. And yes, we believe in a different, our religion is very different,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of restrictions, but I try to explain to my kids why these restrictions are there, and they're there in their favor. They're there because we ultimately want to serve God. We want to be better people,
Mm-hmm.
and by being better people, you have to have good values. You have to look forward to being better.
Can
And
you
by instilling those values in my kids, we try to do that on a day-to-day basis.
could you expand a little more on the restrictions or the rules that you have in place, and kind of how that looks in day-to-day life, and what, I guess, what the outcome is from the input of the restrictions?
Yeah, definitely. This is a very, very long conversation, I would say, because as a 33-year-old, I
Mm-hmm.
still on a day-to-day basis learn more about the laws that we should or shouldn't be doing. But to give you a brief overview, right, on the Saturday, right, the fact that we don't work for 24 hours,
Mm-hmm.
some people think that it's only um, electronic devices that we don't use, but it's way, way beyond that. There are actually like 39 basis restrictions that we follow, and a lot of what comes after that is things that are created through those restrictions, because during the time that our sages wrote the laws of that
Mm-hmm.
we practice on a daily life, right? There were no cars.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we should be driving cars today. Maybe we are allowed. But we have to seek out what did they disallow us from doing? Why did they allow us to do that? And based off that, we have to move forward and use those same foundational values
Mm-hmm.
and move that further in the process. So when you ask someone what is it about Saturday that you love the most, right, for me I would say looking away from the restrictions, right? You can look at it, this is the metaphor of the cup that's half full and half
Mm-hmm.
empty. How are you going to choose to look at it, right? Part of me may choose to say, oh, Saturday is such a hard day, I can't be on my phone, I can't drive my car, I can't carry outside, um, I can't open or close a light. I can't open or close
Mm-hmm.
an air conditioner, right? There's so many things. I can't cook. I can't open a flame. There's literally so many restrictions. But at the same time, I look at it, you know what? That's a perfect day for me to spend quality time and focus solely on quality time with my family, with myself, with my God, with my community. Because there is no, like, I know that no one is going to bother my cell phone. I know that no one from within is even going to call me, because they're doing the same thing now. They're also spending time with their family. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, while there are part of it is being very restrictive, at the same time those restrictions allow you to spend more quality time, allow you to see the positive of it. I'm going to give this metaphor, and it may explain a little bit more of how we look at boundaries, so to say, right? Because
Yeah.
all restrictions are basically boundaries, right?
Yeah.
They're not, we create them from within. There is no one is holding a gun to my head and saying, don't do this on Saturday. If yes, I'm going to shoot you, right?
Right.
It's us creating that boundary because we believe in life. We believe in either, hell or the Garden of Eden in the world to come. So we believe in punishment in the world to come. We don't believe as much in punishment in this world. although that's a whole different conversation of religion that I'm not going to go into now. But I'm going to use this metaphor to explain it a little bit. Where imagine yourself standing on one of the tallest buildings in the world, right? Be it the Empire State Building, the Freedom Tower, or the huge, I don't know what it's called, that huge tower in Dubai. And imagine there would
Oh
be
yeah,
no
Burj
gate.
Khalifa.
Yeah, Burj Khalifa. Imagine there would be no gate at the edge of the rooftop, right?
Hmm.
No one would be able to go till the end because everyone would be scared that if you go till the end, I'm gonna fall off.
Right.
So I'm scared I'm gonna slip. I'm scared someone is gonna push me. I'm scared I'm gonna lose my balance. So you're always gonna stand back and say, let me stand back 5, 6 feet. Let me give myself that buffer zone in case I slip, in case someone pushes me, right? In case something happens or I get distracted, that I should be able to like refrain from falling off the building. But at the same time, now look at that same building and imagine someone created there a fence, a
Hmm.
metal fence that even if you push it, nothing is gonna happen. Now suddenly you're allowed to go till that fence. You're gonna you don't need anymore that 5 feet buffer zone. Now I'm actually someone that's scared of height, so I'm still not gonna go till the fence. But just to use the metaphor, right? What the fence, what boundaries create is it allows you to go till that boundary because now you know what you're allowed to do. So yeah, while these things are very restrictive, while not using a cell phone is very restrictive, it also tells me and it kind of forces me in a voluntary way to have that quality time, to use that, to look at that day as a day of rest, as a day of refreshing myself, as a day of like focusing, and while we have it in a more restrictive way than the general world has it, the same thing is the world has the same thing because in most of the cultural world, in the business world, there are days off, right? Be it
Hmm.
Sunday, be it holidays, be it whatever it is, right? In European countries, they have holidays for a couple of weeks at a time. They still use now, they don't actually put away their cell phones, maybe, right? They don't restrict themselves from driving, but they restrict themselves from work. So it's not so foreign for someone to understand where that comes from,
Right.
but rather we just took it a different step. We just took it to a different level. And yeah, it's a very hard level for some to understand. But I would say, like, try it once, right? Try to
Yeah.
put away your cell phone for 24 hours on a day of rest, not on a work day, on a day of rest. You have a Sunday off, you have a Thanksgiving off, you have a Christmas off, or a New Year off. Put away your phone and just celebrate it within, like, do what the people did 100 years ago when there was no technology and see for yourself if that's something that you find powerful, if that's something that you find that gives you the energy, gives you the quality time that almost everyone wants.
Right. What and I have a couple of questions related to that, but for the as far as restrictions go, do you feel like it's a restriction on your life, or do you feel like you're like you said, setting a boundary? Like, how does it feel for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, do you
For
ever
me,
feel like, oh, I wish I could?
it honestly doesn't feel restricted at all. For me, it
Okay.
really feels like setting that boundary and allowing me to walk within that rooftop, within that free space, that this is what you're allowed to do. Because for every restriction that you're not allowed to do, there is a lot more that you're allowed to do. And the basic side of humanity, of human connection, that's never taken away from us through restrictions, right? Facebook is a good way to communicate with friends, but what is a better way than Facebook? A better way than Facebook is to actually sit with that person,
Yeah.
right, at a dinner, at a family, at a restaurant, spend quality time with them, not through online. So for every restriction that we have, like don't use Facebook, don't
Hmm.
use a phone on Shabbat, don't use technology. There's so much that we could do, which is spending more time, spending more physical human connection, more time with family, more time with kids, more time with God, more time with community. So I don't look at it as a restriction, but rather I look at it as kind of, I think in the English language, there's this word forced saving that some people look at a mortgage as, right? Where you can either choose to pay the mortgage money as rent, or you can choose
Hmm.
to pay it as a mortgage. And the difference between the two is it's a forced saving. So because it's a forced saving, does that mean it's restrictive? No, not at all. You gain ultimately in that because if you pay the same for both, right, after 30 years or so, when your mortgage expires, when you're finished, when you paid up your mortgage, then
Hmm.
the house is yours. Then you gain the value of what was the restriction till now, what you were forced to do till now. So I look at it that way. I look at it as boundaries that create so much quality, so much value in my life that it's not a restriction.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. And do you feel like, or it sounds like a lot of your life, your spiritual life, your religious life is ingrained into your everyday life. So what I was saying was you have this like very, I guess, full spiritual life, and it seems like your religion and your spiritual life is a part of your life, where some people may go to church once a week or once a month, and the values are there, but they aren't ingrained in their decision making all the time, and maybe the boundaries aren't as strong. So I'm really curious for you how you've experienced this life and what your connection to God feels like, um, and yeah, just how your spiritual life is.
Yeah. So I would say it is this is central to my belief system, to our belief system as Jews. We do believe that every single movement we take is monitored, seen by God, and everything we do is either good or evil.
Mm-hmm.
So, and just to give you a little bit of an example, in anything you do, so it can be like opening a door, it can be eating something, it can be exercising, it can be walking the streets. You have to look at it from the perspective, is it good or is it evil? And if you eat in order to have energy to go out and help someone, right, then it's good. But if
Mm-hmm.
you eat in order to fulfill a bad side of you, a bad habit, or if you do something that creates a bad habit, then we look at it from an evil perspective. And it comes a little bit from that side. So, yeah, God for us is in our life 24/7, 365. We don't ever get a break from that.
Mm-hmm.
But within those rules, everything we do, we look at from that lens. Like, can it be a good can it be a good thing to do or can it be a bad thing to do? And the good thing doesn't necessarily mean that you always have to go. You can't only serve God when you're in the synagogue. You can also serve God by serving other people, by serving humanity, by creating positivity, by helping a homeless person, by donating charity. There are
Mm-hmm.
so many good deeds that we can do, and any good deed is valued as something that can be spiritually good for us. So, and you don't have to actually believe in the same system that we do in order to realize that, because compassionate is part of humanity. It's been that way since the beginning of times,
Mm-hmm.
where a lot of people are more compassionate, but everyone has a certain sense of compassionate in themselves in order to give that forward. You don't have to believe that there's this God on top of you that watches you, that monitors everything you do, but you still try to do as much good as possible. We just have that. The restriction part of it is that we always have to judge, is it good or is it bad? Is it good or is it evil?
Mm-hmm.
And in everything we do, we try to serve God. We sleep in order for us to have energy the next day
Mm-hmm.
to, to go out and do things, to be a good parent, to be a good husband, to be a good child, to teach my kids values. I eat in order to have energy, I exercise in order to, be a better version of myself. I
Right.
want to be healthy in order to share positivity with the world. So everything we do, we try for it to go into the good box.
Right. And for if it happens to fall into the evil box, is there a belief that like something bad will happen, or is it just pulling you further away from God?
Yeah,
Like
it's a
what? Yeah.
combination. It's a combination of both. We do believe in hell, and we do believe that anything that falls into the evil box pulls us a little bit away from God. That's,
Mm,
as Orthodox Jews, that's what we believe. But there's always room for forgiveness,
right.
because the if you believe generally in this belief system, in this God, the same God that created good also created evil, because he wants us to rise above the challenge. He wants you to be a better version of yourself. I don't
Mm,
know if you ever read the book The Giver. Um, the book The Giver has a very interesting concept in the book where the entire world was created with sameness, and that's the central theme of the book. That, like, when we grow up, we're taught about colors, right? People
Mhm.
teach us that green is green and a tree is a tree and a car is a car. But imagine if you wouldn't be knowing any of this. Like if you would be only growing up with the basic necessity that we actually must have, let's say food and drink and
Mhm.
air, right? But nothing beyond that. No one would ever tell you that a tree is a tree. No one would ever tell you that people die, that people are born, but rather it would look like as if it's same. There's no feelings, there's no connection. Then the world would be very different. But the world wasn't created that way. The world was created in a way where we receive a lot from the people that educated us, be it our parents, our teachers, our
Mm.
spiritual leaders. And that same thing that we receive from them, we also have to give forward. So we have to have that emotional side. We have to have that choosing of what is good and what is not. And
Right.
at the same time, for me as a Jew, I also have to look at it as in people make mistakes, right? People do make mistakes. And if you actually love your child, there are times when they make mistakes with you, right? But because you love them, you forgive them. If they show you that they're going to be better and they remove the bad habits from themselves, we don't believe that the kid itself became a bad kid. We believe that that child, right, or that person, that friend,
Mhm.
had a bad habit, and we try to remove that bad habit from the person. So the same way it goes to us, that if we, God forbid, do something that falls into the evil box, we try our best to correct it by looking what caused that bad habit to happen, what caused that evil side of me to come out, and I try to, between me and God, to ask for forgiveness. Yeah, we have
Mhm.
a 10-day period of the year. The high holidays is that time of the year for us where we ask God for a good year and we ask for a better year than the year before. We ask to minimize the evil, to maximize the good.
Mhm.
So yeah, there is always room for improvement. There is, both sides of it have to battle with each other, but that's how we grow as individuals. That's how we grow generally in the world. I think the world believes in this concept of growth is usually going to come from a place of discomfort, because you have to challenge yourself. Otherwise, you just have sameness, you have equalness, and it's very hard to grow in a world of equalness where everything and everyone, and there is no feelings involved, there's no emotions, there's no
Right.
human attachment.
Do you feel like the roots that you've grown within your community, within your religion, it's kind of like energy, what you put out, you get back in. Like, how does
Yes.
that feel in connection with the rest of the world? Do you feel isolated? Like you can grow within your community, but are you growing within the world's community? Or does it feel like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, definitely. Because like I said, God created every single individual,
Mm-hmm.
and he created so many different cultures, so many different backgrounds, so many different places in the world where people do different things, and you can learn from every single person. Just by me now being a coach in Jay Shetty's program,
Mm-hmm.
none of the people that I encountered with on a day-to-day basis were Orthodox Jews. None of them came with the same spiritual background that I did,
Mm-hmm.
but we were able to learn a lot from each other. And as coaches, right, we come to the table with no bias. It's hard for me sometimes to remove my bias because it's very visible. I wear my yarmulke, which is the head
Mm-hmm.
covering, for every moment of the day. I wear my side curls. I wear my religious clothing for every moment of the day. So it's hard for me to remove that bias from me. But I
Mm-hmm.
try to come into the room without interfering, without having that bias interfere with my client's life, or even
Right.
with my coach's life as a client, because I want both of us to feel safe, as if I'm not imposing them to adapt my religion, and they're not hoping for me to adopt their religion, but we can
Right.
actually have conversation based off what you believe is fine, what I believe is fine, and we can conversate about it, but we don't have to debate about it. Like no one has to win this argument, but we can just talk through it and learn from each other.
Right. Your beliefs feed your soul and they help you move through this world and in your life. And it's not
Exactly.
anything you're projecting onto someone else. I I'm really curious to hear how you got into coaching. And yeah, tell me more about your coaching journey of how you got into it and what it's like right now.
So for me, it's a very personal question. I'm going to share as much as possible for people to understand. It mainly started for me. I always had a fear growing up of anxiety, rather not anxiety. I had a fear of heights. So I remember like vividly in my mind that when I was a young child, probably around 8, 9, 10 years old, we used to go to camp in upstate New York, and our buses used to park on one side of the road, and the actual camp was located on the other side of the road,
Mm-hmm.
our school. And in order for us to cross that road, there was a bridge. That bridge was probably 20 feet high or something like that, like not crazy high. But whenever I went over the bridge, I always suffered from a phobia of heights. I was always very fearful. I used to have like chest pain, and I used to run across that bridge, like try to make it as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And I vividly remember that like once when a tractor trailer came under the bridge while I was crossing, I lay down on the bridge. So in case the bridge falls, I should fall together with the bridge flat, and I shouldn't like land on my head. I vividly remember that. But I would say that as I matured, as I grew older, like that main phobia escaped from me. I still had here and there some phobias, some fear of heights, but it was controllable. Probably around a year ago or so, that all changed where I became a little bit more anxious in my life, and I started feeling my phobia being a little bit more. And I remember like one night waking up with like extreme pain and going to my doctor, and I was like, something is going on. Like, is my heart okay? And he's like, what's going on? I'm like, I feel like my heart is beating very fast. I feel like I'm having chest pain. I
Mm-hmm.
literally woke up my wife in panic one night that I'm about to go to the hospital because it feels like I'm having a heart attack. And I was actually scared for my physical health. And I was by the doctor. He checked everything out, and he was like, your physical side, everything checks out. Like you're healthy, you're in shape, your blood work came out good. We did a sonogram of my heart, echo, EKG, and everything was perfectly fine. And he was like, you have to realize that there may be some other things involved. You may be suffering from anxiety, which is a mental health.
Mm-hmm.
It's not physical health. And I was like, okay, like I'm someone that's going to try to heal myself like right away. And as soon as that happened, I tried to like look into therapy, and I did actually CBT. I did a full complete CBT course, which took a roughly 10 weeks or so, but it didn't help me a lot. And I'm sharing this only because this is my personal experience. I am not offering medical advice here for anyone. I
Sure.
do genuinely believe that there are a lot of smarter people than me in the world, and they have come to the conclusion that therapy does help. And I don't disagree with them in any which way. I don't question in any which way what they say, because for every single person, there is different treatments, different methods, different help. And for me, I felt like it came from a place within me, and the central theme of coaching is the belief system that if there's a way in, there's a way out.
Mm.
And that for me is the difference that spoke to me so much, that I believe that this was central to my being, that I'm suffering from within. And if there was a way in, there's going to be a way out. And coaching is uses that modality of questioning the client themselves,
Right.
not the specific topic, right? Not the mental health issue, just speaks to human interaction where we just question. And for me, it helped so much because I wasn't able to ask myself it's very odd for a person to get in front of a mirror and start asking themselves questions
Right.
like, what am I feeling at the moment? Because usually like after a minute you're just going to give up. Like this, the human side of us is like, it's not helpful, let me just walk away, let me not do it. But in coaching, you're kind of pushed a little bit, not forced, but like pushed a little bit to expose yourself and to discuss it. And when you talk about these things, it brings up your subconscious mind to levels that you are usually not exposed to, that you usually aren't, feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And that allowed me to help myself a lot more than therapy. And this is speaking to me specifically, that coaching helped me a lot more than anything
Right.
else, because I felt like it needs to come from within. And by questioning myself, by being available for multiple cultures, by going through this program, um, I hope to I hope to be completely helped, and at the same time also be able to help other people that may be struggling with a very similar or different circumstances. But I do believe that they can use a soundboard, right? They can use a
Right.
coach that just asks them the question and realize that, yeah, they're in a room that has all the tools around them, but someone just needs to open the light for them.
Exactly. Yes, that's what I love about coaching too, because it's a lot about self-reflection and being open to feedback and giving yourself honest feedback, and really like a safe space to be honest with yourself. Because I've been in therapy, I had different therapists before, and it can help for a certain issue, or it sometimes can only get to a certain place, whereas coaching kind of goes through all the aspects of our lives where we might not be looking, and starts to ask questions and dig deeper into, so we can reveal what's going on within us that we may not have had connected to a problem that we're having or a goal that we want to achieve.
Yes, definitely. Completely agree.
So when you are in your coaching, with your coaching hat on, you are the coach, what sort of approaches do you take with new clients? Um, and I guess not going into like their personal details, but what sort of goals and accomplishments are they looking to have? Like, what sort of coach do you think that you are, your niche for coaching?
So I am a small business owner, so I do believe that I bring a little bit of that experience to the table when I do coaching. So I am available for like people that want to launch their own business, that want to that want someone to question them, the questions that need to be asked when you launch a new business. I'm also very into personal growth,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a big part of me. It may come a little bit from my religious background, but when I'm in my coaching zone, when I'm in my coaching sessions, I don't bring my religious background to it, but rather personal growth for everyone may look differently, right? For
Right.
someone it's serving God, for someone it's serving a higher power, for someone it's serving their profit, for someone it's serving their purpose. But everyone genuinely, I believe that everyone has a purpose, and their purpose is to be a better version, to have personal growth. So I would say that like I bring a little bit of my business side of myself as a small business owner and a little bit of my personal growth side. That's probably the main topics that I am. And again, as someone that went through mental health, that's also something that I try to bring into the table and
Yeah.
understand what they're going through, where they're coming from, because it is very hard as outsiders that do not suffer from the things that mental health people struggle with. I'm not going to call it suffer. I hate using that word because suffer is a very loaded word, but
Right.
rather it's a hurdle. It's a struggle that they go through.
Right.
People that do not go through these struggles, it's very hard for them to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember when I first started talking about my anxiety, people were like, "What do you feel like?" And I'm like, "How do I explain chest pain to people?" Well,
Mm-hmm.
I try to use this phrase where like go outside, pick up the biggest cinder block that you find, not this small red bricks, but right, this
Mm-hmm.
big cinder block, lay down on the floor and put it onto your chest and tell me how that feels. Like, can you explain that feeling? And it's very hard to explain it, but that's kind of what some people feel when they go through anxiety. Some
Mm-hmm.
people have it differently. Some people have headaches. Some people feel that their body freezes. Some people have chronic pain. Everyone is going to experience their mental health differently. So it's very hard to explain it. But if you went through it, you're able to help people and be in a certain sense empathetic to what they're going through and help them grow as individuals, grow away from that, grow out of it, grow with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, that I feel like as people that went through it, we bring a lot to the table when we just bring ourselves to the room.
Totally. And my coaching is in mostly authentic self-expression and confidence, and I talk a lot about deconditioning what we've learned so we can align with who our true selves is, or who we are like truly within ourselves. And I'm curious for you, having grown up with such a very clear guided uh life path in terms of religion, beliefs, and values. How has that conditioning or upbringing affected the person you are today? And what do you feel, when do you feel, I have three questions. So that first one,
Okay.
when do you feel most like yourself? And what have you learned about yourself being in the coaching world and being a coach, since it is more neutral to understanding and relating to any person, what religious background or not? What is that like for you?
I'm gonna try to answer all of them together,
Okay.
and make like one big pot and cook all of them together, because I do believe they're intertwined with each other, and it all comes down to me for personal growth, for purpose. I look at coaching, and I this is based off a little bit of my experience from being available as a coach and being
Mm-hmm.
available as a client as well. That nearly every time that someone comes with an issue, be it a big one or a small one, to the table, right? And they set goals. The underlying theme is going to be self confidence. The underlying theme is going to be self expression.
Mm-hmm.
Because generally speaking, if you're self confident, you are at the right place of mind. So when we come into the room, yeah, someone may specialize in a niche like finances, right? Or family and friends or anything else. But the underlying cause is usually going to be the lack of confidence in themselves, the lack of self expression, the lack of
Mm-hmm.
speaking up. And I believe that it all ties together. And when we grow up in this religious background, personal growth is for us something that we strive to do each and every day, because we have to constantly choose. Like I said before, we have to constantly choose between good or bad,
Mm-hmm.
between good or evil. So everything that you do, you have to grow, because if you don't grow, you're not gonna fall back.
Mm-hmm.
While and I look at it this way. I ask myself always this question, right? Do I believe that life is supposed to be easy or not? And for me, it's going to be relevant to what you consider hard, right? If you consider hard to be 100 and 0 to be easy, what's
Mm-hmm.
the in between? Is that lesser than hard and it makes it easy, or is that more than easy and it makes it hard? And my belief is that life is not meant to be easy. No one, I'm not going to say no one, but I would say very few people have life easy. But that's the way we grow. We grow through having challenges. We grow through having, having to choose, having to make constant decisions, educated decisions that instill in us the value, that uses our mind. What values do I have? How do I make this decision in a way that I can connect my values to the decision that I'm making? How can I form better habits? How can I be a better version of myself?
Mm-hmm.
And the more expressive side, the more confidence you gain within you, the more you're able to grow and believe that you are growing to a better place, growing into a better person, leaving a better legacy behind you. So they're kind of, for me, they're intertwined with each other, where self confidence, believing in you, believing in expression, all those things tie into the central theme of we want to be a better version of ourselves. We want to be a better person to the world and to ourselves, because we do genuinely want to be good.
Mm-hmm. And when do you feel most like yourself?
That's a tough one. You probably have to ask me this question, I would say maybe in a couple of months from now, because as I'm going through this coaching, I'm experiencing a lot more than I thought I have in me.
Mm.
Because I do feel like part of what I went through was a muted version of my emotions, and that's what may have triggered my anxiety.
Oh,
But I don't
yeah.
really know this yet. So I don't really know this for sure yet. I don't know if I'm ever gonna know it. But when I do feel my most self, is I do feel my most self when I am vulnerable, when I can connect with myself, with my family, with God, with the people around me. That's when I feel most myself. When I do have that human connection, not like technology connection or not attachment, but rather when you have that human connection with whoever it may be, right? Be it during the high holidays in synagogue when you pray to God and you shed a tear,
Yeah.
right? Being when you hug the people around you, or and these emotions can come on positive and negative sides, right? They can come when you lose someone, or they can come when you love someone, when you um they can come on both sides of the aisle, like positive and negative. And that's where we're different than, rocks and trees, that we have that ability to connect humanly to
Right.
ourselves and to the people around us. And that's when I feel most myself, when I actually have that emotion and have that feeling within.
Right. Like fully present, vulnerable,
Yes.
and very like kind of outside world, future not considered, past not considered, but very much in the present moment with who
Yes,
with.
yes, completely. Yes.
Yeah.
If you take me out of the picture for a second, that's when Shloimy Reiger feels most himself,
Mm-hmm.
when he's present, when he has that human connection to either himself, to the world, to his family, to his wife, to his parents,
Mm-hmm.
to his God, to his community, to his rabbi. Like, yeah, that's when he feels most himself.
Would you describe yourself as an extrovert, like someone who gets energy the more they interact with people?
I honestly don't know. It's very hard. I always ask myself this question. I don't know, because part of me is an extrovert, but part of me is an introvert. I would call myself like I don't know if there's such a word as a semi
Mm,
or a bivert. I would say that with my friends and family, I'm very easy. But with general strangers that I don't know at all, I don't I don't necessarily enjoy it. But
yeah.
once I get to know them, I'll be more than happy for them to be a good friend of mine. So I don't know if that's considered completely an introvert, because I believe introvert are people that are more muted than I am. Like I came on this podcast, right, just from one simple request, and I enjoy sharing my life
Yeah.
because I do believe that we can have that human connection. I don't know if an introvert would necessarily be as open as I am. So that's why I consider myself like a combination of both.
Right.
Or I would say maybe I'm becoming an extrovert as part of the coaching. That may also
Right.
be.
Or you're getting to explore that side of yourself more.
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
What has it been like meeting so many new different people, hearing a lot of different stories with the
It
coaching?
it's been a lot. It's been a lot.
Yeah.
I remember today when I went out in the morning at like 10 o'clock from my house. I left my house to do a coaching session, and my wife was like, "Oh, you're going again? I feel like you're coaching so much."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yes, I am. Like that's the new me. That's part of my life. Part of my life is being vulnerable with other people and other people being vulnerable with me. And
Yeah.
that's the part that I really love, because it allows us to be present in ways that we never were before. It allows me to be present in ways that I was never before. And if you ask me when I feel the most myself, it is now, like during these coaching sessions. And I take the value and the knowledge that I gain in these sessions, I take that forward and use it even when I'm not coaching or even when I'm not a client,
Yeah.
to be my best version, to be vulnerable, to be present, to
I
to feel that emotion from within.
wholly agree with that. The coach there, I get like so much energy from coaching, and I think there's a relief in not having to give advice, but just having to help someone and asking the right questions to uncover.
Right. Yeah, and that's where the power of coaching is so different than anything else, that we don't give advice. We
Yeah.
ask the people the questions, and we do believe that they're genuinely, resourceful, wholesome, complete. They have everything from within, but someone just needs to flip on the switch, open the light, just needs to ask them the question, so they should see the value that they have within.
And I'm curious because you mentioned your wife. How did you guys meet? And especially when in this world, everyone's on dating apps and everything. So really curious how you guys met and, you know,
Yeah, so the way it works in the Orthodox Jewish world is, it's usually arranged dating, where someone that knows my family, my parents, myself, and knows my wife family, her parents, herself, would pick up the phone and say, "Hey, like you have a son, Shloimi, you have a daughter, Devairi. How
Mhm.
about they let them go out on a date, let them meet, and let them see if it works." And then based off that, like, we respond if we do feel like we are connected, or if we don't feel like we connected, and you take it from there. So there's usually like a third party involved. But this is also speaks to what I said before, where if you take out the technology, it doesn't take away what we had,
Right.
right? It doesn't take away just the opposite. It puts in the human instead of the technology. It puts in the mind instead of the robot. People
Yeah.
dated for years without these apps, and they were successful in it. So you can't tell me that apps is the only way to date now, because what was
Right.
30 years ago before all these apps were available?
And it's people
And
who
for
actually know you and know like
yeah,
how to make
yeah,
a
that's
good
generally how it goes. Exactly.
referral. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And how did you know that your wife was the one you wanted to marry?
Honestly, I didn't know, but it's part of the working process. I look at it this way, like there is take the most powerful celebrity couple in the world, the most powerful celebrity in the world, right? And they also went through a couple of relationships. Very few
Mhm.
people can say that marriage is perfect, and it's hard to say that, because if you believe that everything in this world is not easy, right, comes from a place of challenge, you're never going to know if the person you choose is the right one, but you choose to make it work for you. You
Mhm.
choose to make the relationship work. And that's something that I always wanted to do. I wanted to choose a life partner, someone that's going to be on the same page as me,
Mhm.
religiously, spiritually, educationally, and be able to share this journey together with them and build a life together. And the relationship is constantly evolving. It's something that grows from within. It, I always use this metaphor, right? If you stop people randomly in the street and you ask them now, tell me the definition of being in love. Every single person you stop is going to give you a different definition. Every single one of them. They may use different phrases, different words, but no one is going to tell you the same answer for it. And that speaks to how people define love. Everyone defines it differently. For me, it was choosing someone that I feel like I can connect to, that I feel that I
Mhm.
can share this education, share the life values that I have, share this journey with someone that's going to be a rock solid bone for me when I need support, and someone that I can support when they need.
Mhm.
And these things grow. They grow with time. No
Yeah.
relationship is supposed to be perfect on day one, but you grow it with time. So I chose my wife because I wanted to grow in a relationship with her, and thankfully I'm married for 13 years now. Very happy.
Amazing.
Love my wife, love my kids, love my physical space, love my emotional space, and I'm very lucky that I'm able to share this journey with her, with the world, with you, with
Yeah.
your listeners. And yeah, I'm proud to be able to bring myself to this, and the value that I have in my life, the value that I have instilled in myself and in my kids, to future generations.
I think you have a really great outlook that things aren't easy. Things aren't meant to be easy, and they're not going to be easy. Therefore, I'm going to work at it and keep going. And instead of getting discouraged, and maybe you can give me some advice, because for me, I look for things that are easy, and I'm like, yeah, if it's easy, then I'll go with the flow of it. But when things are hard, I get really, really discouraged. So, what words of wisdom do you have for someone like me who's like kind of has I have an aversion to things that are seemingly hard, because I'm almost like maybe I'm not meant to do that because it's not coming to me easily.
Right. What I do generally when I'm faced with that is I look back at when was the last time I had a challenge in my life, and how did it feel after I finished the challenge, after I completed the challenge, right?
Mhm.
Does it feel like I had a huge accomplishment, or does it feel like I did something that was easy? And I for myself, I feel like there's such a strong urge to have that feeling, to have that strong emotional feeling from within, and that only happens when you do something that wasn't easy, right?
Mhm.
When you just sit down and eat, you're not going to feel as good as when you have to cook the dinner. And yeah, it's hard to sit down, right, and start preparing and mixing all the ingredients together, open the stove, do everything, right? You'd much rather just go on to Uber Eats and get the order delivered to your door, right?
Right.
But think back to the last time you had that challenge within you, where you were able to choose either the easy path or the hard path, and which one made you feel better. And when I think back on that, I always know that what made me feel better was the challenging one, was
Yeah.
the fact that I accomplished that goal, the fact that I fought through it. I pushed through and I survived, I
Right.
thrived. And for me, that gives me like clarity to say, you know, you don't have to try that every single day. Don't put yourself in a challenge every single day. But if you realize that that's the place where you grow, then it encourages you to do more of it, to put yourself more in these situations where you're faced with the challenge.
Yeah.
And I see that happening a lot. Like I see that happening during one of the coaching calls that we had where I volunteered to be a coach. And the past version of myself would have never done that. I would have never put myself out there in the world because
Mhm.
I wasn't this type. And even now when you open this question of who wants to come up as a guest, I was like, I jumped in. I'm like, would I be able to do this a year ago? Probably not. But you know what? Guess what, Courtney? It feels so good to be able to share our life journey with someone else. And yeah, before it was a challenge. Yeah, before I could have said, no, I'm not interested in doing it. Right. But
Yeah.
I didn't choose the easy way. I chose the challenging way to sit down, give you an hour of my time. And then, and all with all due respect, I'm going to give you a huge thanks because you just gave me an hour of my time as well and an hour of your time. So look at it as this challenge was so good for me, so good for the both of us that
Yeah.
if we would have taken the easy way out of not doing the podcast, of me saying no, of me not volunteering, well, it wouldn't have helped me. I wouldn't have felt better. Now I actually feel better. So I'm always going to look back at the challenge and be like, the challenge is what made me thrive. Let me try that again.
Right. And I like the cooking analogy because I the thought of doing it is more stressful than actually doing it. Once I start preparing food, chopping up vegetables, I'm at peace. I love it and I feel really good. And so that I think there's something to that. Like when you see the challenge, sometimes like just the idea of it is harder than when you approach it and
Right.
actually going through the motions of going through it.
Right. Yeah, I would say always embrace the challenge and try to fight through it. You're always going to be in a better place afterwards than before. And
Right.
even if it's a loss, even if let's say you lost the challenge, then
Mm-hmm.
you still learn something from it. You learn that maybe this challenge is not for you, right? And maybe this journey is not for you. So even if it's a loss, you still can take that message or that inner feeling and use it in future as a win for something else.
Totally. Thank you so much, Shlomi. You've given me so much inspiration, and I'm really glad that this was my first call. Any final words, any words of advice, words of wisdom that you want to leave on?
I'm gonna share one thing that I'm very happy for you that that you did this because I genuinely believe that so many people are going through hardships in their life, going through hurdles in their life, and they need that human connection,
Mm.
that not like social media, not like those. They need that human person to person connection. And when you share this space with so many people from so many different backgrounds, so many different cultures, so many different religions, and take that knowledge and spread it further, you're actually changing lives. So
Wow.
my wisdom to you is continue doing what you're doing. You're actually meant for this, I think. You're doing a very good job at it. Just
Thank
continue being your genuine version of yourself, continue spreading wisdom, continue spreading awareness and positivity in the world. God bless you.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
All right, awesome.
Have
It's
a
great.
great
It's great
day.
hearing from you, and I'm looking forward to you calling me back, hopefully one day.
Yes, we can have a part two. If there, once I post everything, I'll follow up with you. And I imagine there'll be lots of other questions. I'm gonna have a question and answer part, like for people to write in questions, and so we can do a part two if we
All right, awesome.
come to that. Okay, thank
Awesome.
you so much.
I'm excited for you. Congratulations on your podcast launching. I'm very much looking forward to see where this goes because I genuinely believe that you're meant for this. You're
Oh,
a very great conversationalist. You bring a very genuine side. And like even through the phone, even through just hearing your voice, I can feel the smile. I can feel the human connection that there is. And that's what people look for when they listen to a podcast. They want to feel like you're actually speaking to them. And I feel like you bring that to the table
oh,
very expressively.
oh, thank you. I'm honored. Thank you for joining us today. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and join us in our next conversation where we'll be exploring the extraordinary lives of ordinary people.
I'm Courtney Lofton, and this is Ordinary Eccentrics.